Hello learners, today we are going to discuss about BPCC 103, Psychology of Individual Differences, Block 1, Individual Differences. So in this BPCC 103, we'll discuss about various units. In Unit 1, which is we are going to discuss today, personality and individual differences. Then Unit 2, assessment of personality. These two units are very important to understand the personality and its related assessments. Unit 3 will discuss about the concepts of intelligence and emotional intelligence. Unit 4 will discuss about the theories of intelligence, and in Unit 5, assessment of intelligence. In under Unit 6, we'll discuss about the aptitude, concepts, and measurement. And in Unit 7, we'll discuss about differences between Indian and Western psychology. Unit 8, concepts of self in Indian thoughts. Unit 9, motivation, and Unit 10, creativity. So today we are going to discuss about Unit 1, and all these units will be covered within 5 to 7 lectures. So in this unit, we'll discuss about the individual differences, defining personality, and theories of personality. So today we are not going to discuss about the assessment. In our next class, we'll discuss about the assessment. It takes lots of time, and it is very essential to understand those assessment in detail. So the learning objective is to understand individual differences, define personality, to understand aspects of personality, to understand various theories of personality, and to understand various perspectives of self and personality. So individual differences, basically it is called differential psychology also. Individuals differ from each other based on their intelligence, creativity, interest, leadership skills, or personality, for instance. Also, some certain characteristics, features are similar in different individuals, and psychology of individual differences is also called differential psychology. So, but in individual differences, like people are different on various aspects, various traits, various characteristics, but we do not cover intelligence and these things under individual differences. We talk about individual differences on the basis of personality only. So differential psychology uses a range of research methods ranging from brain imaging to the impact of early childhood experiences. It also studies roles of genes, influences of culture on human behavior. So, like neuropsychologists, basically they study the brain functions, and clinical psychologist, counseling psychologist. So they study various abnormalities of the individual since beginning of the childhood. So first, let us understand what is personality. So you all be knowing that it derived from the Latin word persona, meaning mask. So it means whatever we are seeing, it may not be the original personality. We are just seeing the mask, like in drama. So personality refers to a characteristic way of behaving under similar conditions. So the way people behave in similar conditions, it is called personality. So let us define it. And this is very important to understand the definition of personality. As a psychologist, you must know how to define personality. And the best definition is given by Gordon Allport, 1937. So this is a very comprehensive definition. Allport defined personality as a personality is the dynamic organization within the individual of those psychophysical systems that determine his unique adjustments to the environment. So let us understand the various concepts given in this definition. So it is what is dynamic organization? Dynamic means it is not a static phenomena. It means Once, if you have seen a person of a person with a particular traits, it doesn't mean the person will remain like that only for whole life. There is a possibility of changing certain traits, certain characteristics, certain behavior. So all these things. So that's why it is called dynamic. It's not called static. So it is the dynamic organization within the individual. It is within the individual, not in the environment. And this dynamic organization is of psychological and physical systems of the individual. So we all have psychological systems and physical systems. So like our height is different, our weight is different, our facial expressions are different, our face is different. So all these things basically decide the teacher. Some do not like, some like the course, some do not like, some are punctual, some are late comers, some are backbenchers, and some are very actively participating in the class. So all these, some may get anxious during the exam, some of them may show depressive features when they get poor results or less marks. So all these things are unique and it is related to that person only. Okay, however, there are certain situations where people react commonly. For example, if there is a trauma, there is a possibility that people may develop PTSD. But even though not all the people develop PTSD, even though those who have developed PTSD, their symptoms, their course, duration of the illness, prognosis will be totally different. So you cannot predict that all people will react in the same manner. So please remember this definition, and this is very simple to remember. Like personality is the dynamic organization within the individual of those psychophysical systems that determine his or her unique adjustment to the environment. So personality is psychological in nature, fall outside the intellectual domain. So, like we all are having different IQ level, but it doesn't mean we are personality wise different. Enduring dispositions rather than transient states and form relatively broad or generalized pattern. So it means the short reactions, short behavior, short-term behavior, transient behaviors are not part of the personality. It's enduring dispositions. Let us see some terms related to personality. Just we have discussed, but it should be a little more clear. Organization. Organization means personality is not one part of the person. And before coming to this, let me make it very clear. Like in a day-to-day language, people use is a good personality, healthy personality. Okay, the obese people are considered as healthy. People say is more healthy. So that is not personality. The physical appearance is not personality, though it contributes in the personality, but it is not the only factor. So personality is a whole, like psychological and physical systems. Okay. It is the individual in totality, not a few aspects of the individual. Okay. For example, if some people give charity at do some give some money to the poor who are begging on the red light. Okay, it doesn't mean the person is a very kind person or the person is doing lots of charitable work. It's not necessary. Okay. So because you are just seeing the person at one place and time, so you have to see the individual in totality. It is dynamic, like we have discussed. It's not static. Some of the traits, some of the quality of the person may change after some time. Some of the behavior, the person may refine his behavior, refine his thought process. Okay, And thought process has very much role in personality. Psychophysical system includes both physical, biological, and psychological aspects of the personality, characteristic behavior and thought, like traits which indicate relatively stable and consistent ways of thought, emotional responses, and behavior. So this is very important. Like there must be some consistency. The way person think, the way person react, the way person behave, the way person emotionally get disturbed or expresses the emotions. So there must be a relatively stable and consistent pattern. Relatively, relatively word is very important. It's not like stable. Stable means permanent. So it's not stable, it's dynamic. So relatively stable, we call it. So you might have come through the word trait versus state. So what is the difference between trait and state? Okay, so trait is more or less permanent or relatively stable and enduring characteristic of the person or pattern of behavior. Okay, whereas state is a temporary way of being, uh, the way like you think, you feel, you behave, you relate. Okay, so that's why there is a scale called trait and state anxiety inventory. So where like the some of the person may have the tendency to get anxious in almost all situations, whereas in a state the person may get anxiety only in one situation or certain situation or during certain time period only. After that there will be no anxiety. So let us see the various aspects of personality. Biological aspects decides physical appearance of an individual, physiological processes and the roles of hormones in modulating behavior. What is the role of hormones? For example, if a person is having hypothyroidism, hmm, so this less secretion of hormone will affect the behavior, modulate the behavior. The person may feel lethargy, the person may feel depressed, the person may gain weight. So there are certain things. So this biological aspects decides about the personality, whereas psychosocial aspects like interests, abilities, sociability, emotions, the opportunity, and the environment, all these things basically decides about the personality. Let us see the theories of personality. There, you might be knowing that psychodynamic theories like psychoanalysis, there, behavioral and cognitive theories are there, humanistic theories are there, and trait theories are there. So the first theory which described the personality was psychoanalysis. Then psychodynamic and other theories come. Some people consider psychoanalysis under psychodynamic. So we'll see all these theories in little bit detail. So you will understand personality, how the psychologists or the researchers they defined, they understood, they explained the personality. You all know Sigmund Freud is given theory of psychoanalysis, and he was practicing psychoanalysis. So Freud was one of the pioneers in psychodynamic theory. Almost all psychodynamic theory based on uh, psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis is basically a theory and a form of psychotherapy. It's basically here we are not understanding it as a form of psychotherapy. Here we'll just study psychoanalysis as a form of theory, like explaining how the personality and how different psychopathology develops. So Freudian theory give emphasis on the role of unconscious motives, desires, and forces in shaping personality of an individual. So it talks about unconscious. We'll discuss in detail. And dynamic word is used to highlight constant tussle or conflict between the unconscious and conscious forces. So that's why it is called psychodynamic, because there is always conflict between conscious and unconscious forces. So you might be knowing conscious, unconscious, and there is another concept in between, that is pre-conscious or subconscious. So conscious means the things which are aware, like you are listening the my lecture and words which you are understanding. So this is under conscious. Subconscious means when I ask you some question, and you have to little put pressure on your to recall the, and you find some difficulty, but ultimately you may recall. So this called under subconscious. This is just for example, and this is called subconscious. And unconscious, even though with too much effort you cannot find out the thing, so it becomes unconscious. So to reach the unconscious, Freud has given different ways. One is like free association. Another one is like interpretation of the dream analysis. Another one is like psychopathology of everyday life, where Freudian sleeps. We talks about Freudian sleeps. So according to this, if conscious, pre-conscious, or subconscious, or unconscious, Freud has given another three terms, which are id, ego, and superego. So id is basically works on pleasure principles. It is very difficult for the id to delay the gratification, whereas superego works on moral principles, religious principles. So if something is not morally correct, if something is not religiously correct, superego will not allow those needs, those desires to get fulfilled. So then ego works on the practical principles. So ego decide how to manage this conflict. And another thing, like why ego has to work, because whenever any repressed desires from unconscious, if they want to enter into subconscious, ego get threatened. So to manage those threatening experiences, ego has to manage between superego and id. So like superego is uh, some amount of superego is unconscious, then subconscious, and conscious. Whereas id is wholly unconscious. Ego is some amount of ego is unconscious, subconscious, and conscious. So is it clear? Let us see about the unconscious forces. Id, unconscious desires and need, is based on pleasure principles. So basically, id is unconscious desires and it is based on pleasure principle. It wants pleasure like a child. If the child is hungry, the child wants food. For that, child may cry, child may create scene, child may shout, child may scream, and anyhow, the child wants to fulfill the need. So same way, id is like from anywhere where the pleasure is required, the id may go and id will try to fulfill the desire. Whereas ego is operates on reality principle or practical principles and tries to balance between unwanted desires or immoral needs of id and the moral dictates of the superego. So, uh, like the ego knows the what is really impossible in reality. So ego don't do such things which is not really possible, or which superego condemns. And superego is basically moral side governed by the rules and the standards of conduct of the society, prevents undesirable wishes of the id. So suppose to understand this one example, which may not be true because all these things happens unconsciously, but I am giving the example of a conscious things. Child, the son wants to watch a movie, wants to go to theater, and the father, so it is like pleasure principle. No, no, I want to see this movie, and father is working like a superhero. No, no, such movie you should avoid. These are not the good movies. You should not see such movies at this stage, at this age. Okay, so there is a fight between child and father. Then there is a role of some other family member. Say, for example, the elder brother. So he finds out some age. Okay, what you can do? You want to go to movie? Yes, you can go. You see another movie. You go for another movie, or don't see now. You can watch this movie on your laptop later on. So no need to go to theater. So this is like the practical management. So the child wanted to watch the movie, so child won't watch the movie. Father doesn't want to allow to go to theater and watch such movie. So father is also successful, but the ego managed both the things. So child saw the movie on the laptop, but according to psychoanalysis, all these things happen unconsciously, and no one knows about the kids such things are happening. So interaction between these determine the nature of individual's personality. So see, if there is constant fight between id and superego, so what type of person will be? The person will be less courageous, timid, because the ego is not good, having good strength. So ego is weak. So weak ego people having low confidence and lots of problem due to these conflicts. The person may be in anxiety, the person may develop depression, certain other types of problems. So interaction between these determine the nature of the individual's personality. So if there is a less conflict between id and superego, so ego will be strong, ego will be good. So it means if you repress many needs, many desires, so it will create lots of problem in future, because all those repressed desires, needs may come and try to fulfill their, may come to enter into consciousness, and it will threaten the ego. So rather than repressing the desires, we should try to manage all the needs and desires in a realistic way. So what happens, as I told you, like it send lots of needs and desire to fulfill. Superego ban them. No, no, you can't feel. So it will be very difficult for the ego to manage between them. So for that, ego develops certain defense mechanism to protect itself. So these defense mechanisms may not be healthy and may create lots of problem for the person. So let us see. So these defense mechanisms handle the conflicts and reduce the anxiety caused due to the conflict. So anxiety is managed, but the person may develop that defense mechanism to protect himself or herself. Then defense mechanisms are the mental mechanisms that protect the person from breaking down in conflict between id and ego. We'll see what are the various defense mechanisms. Okay, so one of the defense mechanism is rationalization. Uh, so, like justification or logic for behavior that would be considered as inappropriate or wrong. Okay, so we rationalize our behavior. So, if you try to get something, for example, if you want to get 95% marks and you got only 75%, so you feel very much humiliated. I wanted this, but I couldn't get. You feel very much discouraged. To save your ego, feel hurt. So to save your ego, what you will do? You say those who get 95% mark, they are not very successful in life. So I want to be a successful person. You see, the rationalization is okay. There is nothing wrong in this. Person should be successful rather than focusing on the percentage of marks. But initially, the person wanted 95% marks. So now he changed his stance. So that way, rationalization is not going to help the person to improve. Another one is denial. Denial is basically refusal to accept the fact as it will lead to anxiety and cause distress. So what happens in denial? We generally see when we heard the or when we hear the any news about the very shocking news or any such experience like someone died in the family, it's unbelievable. People do not believe. No, no, it can't. 2 days back I met him. He was fine. How can he die? Okay, it means before die the person should be lying on the bed and something wrong should happen. So that such this disbelief will create denial. So basically, denial is related to like threatening illnesses. Denial is also related to accepting one's own personality traits, one's own behavior, which may cause anxiety or distress or which are not socially acceptable. So we deny, no. And due to denial, basically lots of problem occurs and people, it will be very difficult for the other persons who are staying with that person who is using denial. It becomes very difficult because the person may not accept. It's not that the person is aware. Person may not aware that he is denying the fact. Another one is defense mechanism is sublimation. This is positive defense mechanism. Why we call it positive? Because it is helpful for the society or the family, but may not be helpful for the person. So sublimation is basically channelizing undesirable impulses into socially acceptable and constructive behavior. For example, the person may channelize increased libido or hypersexuality into writing novels or books or performing such certain drama or acts. Okay, such things can be. So another one is regression. Regression is going back to an earlier stage of development and behavior. For example, by waiting or sitting on a certain posture. So regression is seen in generally schizophrenic. So they may maintain certain posture, which is seen in which seen when the fetus was there in the womb. Though, so this is called regression. Regression is also like a 12 class 12 students or graduate students. They speak like in a childish manner. Okay. So that also shows regression. They want that the earlier life was more comfortable than this stage. So regression is basically more or less seen in psychosis, denial and regression. Reaction formation is basically avoids an unacceptable, uncomfortable, and distressed thought about the self by overemphasizing the opposite of it. So, and then projection is projecting or attributing one's unacceptable thoughts and qualities to someone else. It means like if I am telling a lie, so it may hurt me a lot. Why should I am telling a lie? I should not tell at unconscious level. So I use the defense mechanism projection. So the ego will use projection, and I will start saying that all people are in this world are liar. No one, you can't trust anyone. All tell lie. So do not believe. All the company I am working, all people, all my colleagues are liar. So this is one example of projection. And if you tell the person, no, no, you tell lie, you used to tell lie, the person is not going to believe. Then another defense mechanism is displacement, like shifting the emotional reaction from one person object to another. If you are angry on your boss, you don't shout on your boss. You when you come back at home, you shout on your partner, life partner, or your children. So this is one example of displacement. So there are certain defense mechanisms which are seen in psychotics. For example, projection, repression. Another defense mechanism is repression, where we repress all the undesirable needs, thoughts. So repression is basically culprit of using for all the because what happens, you repressed a lot of material unconsciousness, and then they all this material will try to come out in consciousness and creates anxiety, threaten ego. So ego may have to use other defense mechanisms, so that way ego get trapped. So if a person using many defense mechanisms is not a mentally healthy person. So generally, we should try to avoid using defense mechanism, but we may not know that we are using defense mechanism. But if we are open to comments of our colleagues, our classmates, friends, family members, so then we will become aware about those defense mechanism. So now let us see and discuss the psychosocial stages of development given by Freud. So Freud divided all these stages into five: oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital stage. So oral stage he described it from birth to 18 months, like 1.5 years. And here the child get pleasure from mouth. The infant get pleasure from mouth. So the zone of pleasure is mouth. At anal stage, the focus on anus, the zone of getting pleasure from anus, and the toilet training starts at this stage. At phallic stage, that is 3 to 6 years, curious about genital parts. So the child tries to explore his or her genitals. At natal latency stage, that is 6 to 12 years, libidinal urges are suppressed. So the child engaged in studies, plays activities, and certain other things. But at the age of 12 and above, up to 20 years, um, so the genital state starts to get matured, healthy interest, attitude towards sexuality, intimate relationship, and reproduction. So according to Freud, the person may get trouble when these stages are not fulfilled successfully, or when these stages are not crossed successfully. So at oral stage, if this stage was not completed successfully, for example, the child was not given proper feeding, or this, so the child may develop when the child become adult, may use mouth more. So the child may smoke, the person may smoke, may drink when he becomes adult, or may talk a lot. So use of mouth will be more. Where is it anal stage? So here the person may develop OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. So hoarding behavior, even though the things are not necessary, the person tries to hoard the thing. So hoarding behavior is also related to anal stage. So these most of the psychopathologies are developed due to not successfully uh, crossing these edges of oral and anal stage. Now let us see the behavior and cognitive theories of personality. So behaviorists, basically behavior therapist or behaviorist, propose that personality influenced by learning. According to Freud, everything is done in personality due to conscious, subconscious, unconscious, ego and superego, past experiences. But behaviorist and cognitive theories, they talk about the role of learning and the thought process. So learning occurs through patterns of reinforcement. So if there are reinforcement, positive reinforcement, people will learn so many things. If there are no reinforcement, people may not learn, people may forget. So there are responsive behaviors like behavior elicited by stimuli in the environment. So two types of behavior. And involuntary behavior occurs automatically in response to the particular stimulus. Behaviorists, they talk about the operant behavior and the classical learning. So operant behavior or responses operates on the environment which causes change in the environment. Okay. These changes have reinforcing consequences on future response of the individual with regard to the particular stimulus. They are also called instrumental behavior. They are voluntary and they are associated with the response, not the stimulus. So, what type of response you will be performing? So, it will be having impact of on your personality. So, let us see what is positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. So, when something pleasant or desirable is added, for example, getting medal for scoring good marks in final examination, getting stars, getting money, all these are if you do something good or if you keep on doing certain things good. So these things are considered as positive reinforcement if such reinforcement is given. Whereas negative reinforcement is like removing unpleasant stimulus to increase the behavior. For example, restriction of playing games if daily chores are not performed. So you remove something. For example, you were giving pocket money, now you stopped giving pocket. Or if someone is like there is a lots of distraction, so you remove that part. So remember this thing in positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement. The main aim of this reinforcement is to increase the desirable behavior. So some of the students they say negative reinforcement to suppress the behavior, no, to decrease the behavior, no, or to eliminate the undesirable behavior, no. So the both reinforcement, positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement, the main aim is to increase the frequency of desirable behavior in the person. So in positive reinforcement, you give some reinforcement which person likes, whereas in negative reinforcement, you remove the unpleasant stimulus. Skinner has given certain reinforcement schedules. So Intermittent reinforcement, like getting reinforcement not every time the behavior occurs, it strengthens the desirable behavior. For example, gambling. Interval schedules, like fixed and numbers and variable ratio, fixed numbers. So variable ratio talks about the time and fixed number talks about the frequency. So giving reinforcement after a fixed number of responses, for example, every third or fifth response. Okay, so it is fixed. Like if the child um, performs the or do certain act which you like, you reinforce that behavior every time. Then later on, every third behavior is reinforced. Okay. So and there is a fixed and there is a the number may not be fixed in that. What will happen, like the child is not aware when he will be rewarded, but he will get reward. Sometimes he'll get reward after uh, fifth response, sometimes he get award after 10th response, sometimes he gets even after two response. So that this thing also happened in basically gambling. Like when you play cards or gambling, so you may not know when you will win, but there is a possibility of win. So that's why this is more fixing the behavior more time. Whereas variable ratio means you like after how much time it will be, the reinforcement may be given. So time period does not stay constant. So sometimes after 1 hour, sometimes after 10 minutes. Another theory is Bandura's reciprocal determinism. This is also called social cognitive theory. And Bandura has given PBE, person behavior environment paradigm diagram. So according to Bandura, personality is decided by behavior, environment, and factors related to the person, individual. So let us little bit understand this slide. So what happens, like the behavior, the whatever personality we are having, it is also shaped by the environment. How people are behaving in a particular situation, so we see and imitate. So basically, Bandura uh, emphasizes the role of imitation in learning. So the child imitates the child. There are models in the society. So this theory is very much important in understanding the addiction phenomena. So due to social learning, like if there is a model in the family, if father smokes, if father drinks, okay, so there is a high possibility that the children of that family may also develop certain such activities. And because there is a model, the children imitates them. Rotter has given the concept of locus of control. Locus means the place where is the control. So it is inside or it is outside. So if it is inside, it is called internal locus of control. Inside locus of control means when that is internal locus of control, when the person has control over situation or events in their lives, the person thinks, I can control the situation, or whatever I am doing, I am responsible. Why I am doing this thing? Because I am I have these regions and those regions are inside me. For example, if a person tells that why he is smoking, because he is not able to quit it. He finds it difficult. So he wants to quit, but it is difficult for him. So this is called internal locus of control. He says that it is harmful. Whereas external locus of control is when person does not have control over the situation or event, but In external locus of control, the person blames environment for his behavior. If I am smoking, why? Because I have lots of stress and my work is like killing me. Or why I am drinking? Because there is lots of stress in my family. I am overburdened. So to get relaxed, or I have to do night duty, and it is not possible without having drink to do night duty. Or I am working in a very cold situation to keep myself warm. I need alcohol. So all these things are external locus of control. So what happens with the students if the locus of control is internal? So they will focus on their lacunas, their weaknesses, and try to improve those. But if they are having external locus of control, they blame others. I can't study, I can't get good marks because my family doesn't provide me books, or that my family doesn't provide me environment to study, or my family is not supportive, or there is always shouting in my family, lots of noise in my family, my parents fights. So all these reasons, that's why I cannot get good marks. So these are external. So basically, external locus of control must be changed to internal locus of control. We have to take responsibility of our behavior. This is internal. If we are giving responsibility to others, our behavior, why our behavior is such type, because environment is like that, so it is external locus of control. External locus of control will not help in growth, or it will create a weak personality. There is a CAPS model of Walter Mischel and Schoda. It's like cognitive affective personality system, CAPS, and cognitive affective influences on behavior of the individual. We all know that. And our personality affected by four things according to this model: perception of the situation, affective or emotional response to the situation, skills of the person to deal with the situation, anticipation of the outcome of their behavior. So let us understand in little bit brief perception of how we are perceiving the situation. Okay, like next week my exam is there, so I may get anxious. It means I am perceiving exam as a threatened thing, whereas I may perceive, oh, next week my exam is, so I have to work hard, I have to study more. So as there are some paper left which I have to complete, so I can do well in the exam. So this is difference in the perception of the situation. Okay, when you are on roller coaster or when you are on electric swing, you may get feel, oh, I may die or I may fall, or you may enjoy also. Wow, it's beautiful experience that it's giving. It's like I am falling from the top. Okay. So both things, the situation is same, but the perception is different. So every individual has his own perception, the way people see the situation, and accordingly our emotional or affective response will be there for the situation. Okay, so if you think exam is a stressful thing, so you may get anxiety. If you think it is a opportunity to show your ability, so it may motivates you. Okay, skill of the person to deal with the situation. So so if you have developed skills, if you have developed good study habits, if you have study skills, you will study well. If you have not developed study skills, it will create lots of problems. Then anticipation of the outcome of their behavior. If we anticipate the outcome negative, our behavior will be different. So positive anticipation is very much required. Another theory is called humanistic theories. So human beings aim at greater self-understanding and strive for personal growth and self-actualization. A less or no emphasis on unconscious or instinctual energies proposed in psychoanalysis or psychodynamic theory. Humanistic theories basically they talk about human being and they consider all human beings they strive for good, self-actualization. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you might be knowing this. So on the at the base level, physiological needs are there. So all individuals they strive to fulfill their physiological needs like breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis, excretion. Okay, so these are the physiological needs, and we all strive to do such things. So for many of the people, fulfilling these needs is not a problem. So once the person is comfortable in fulfilling those needs, like he has nobody to from where to get food, from where to get water, or where to sleep, where to defecate or urinate. So the person strive for safety needs. What are the safety needs? Like security of body, like we have to keep our body safe, no accident, no illness, of employment, resources, safety of morality, safety of family, safety of health, safety of property. So suppose uh, if our health is good and we have taken health insurance, if we have house, if we have family, if we have lots of resources, if so, it means we have fulfilled our safety needs. So then the person will, those who have easy access to safety needs, so they strive for further needs. That is called love and belonging need. So, like they go for friendship, family, sexual intimacy. So, if your safety needs or physiological needs are not fulfilled, it's very difficult for you to strive for friendship, etc. So then the higher needs are there, like STEAM needs, that is self-esteem, confidence, achievement, respect of others, respect by others. So these are the STEAM needs. So those who are striving to get food or fetching water from 5 to 10 kilometers, they cannot talk about self-esteem or esteem needs. So once our these physiological safety and love belonging needs are fulfilled, then we strive for esteem needs. And then after that only we can strive for self-actualization. We can talk about morality, we can work on our morality, creativity, spontaneity, problem solving, lack of prejudice, acceptance of fact, understanding ourselves, spirituality, religious. So all these things will be there in self-actualization to get insight about wants to understand the nature, to understand the things, all these things. So all this, so personality at various stages will be different. It's not same. The person who has fulfilled or crosses all the needs successfully and at self-actualization stage, we have different personality than the persons who are still striving to get fulfilled his physiological needs. So the first four levels from the bottom are called deficiency or deprivation needs, D needs. The last level of needs is called B needs. So homeostasis is basically maintenance of constant internal environment. A lack of something motivated us to achieve it. Humanistic theories draws the attention from negative side of the human behavior to the positive side of the human behavior and focus on the possibility of a better life, inherent goodness, and optimal mental health. So it doesn't talk about the psychopathology much. Carl Rogers given emphasis on the need for providing unconditional positive regard, accept an individual without any conditions, contribute to mental well wellness and helps in mental well-being and helps in developing a healthy personality in children. He has written two good books, and you must go through these books. Try to find out these books. Some of them are available on internet also, on becoming a better person and person to person. The concept of self, they have talked about like organized, consistent, conceptual, the gestalt composed of perceptions of the characteristics of the I or me, and the real self is basically the actual person at the present and what he or she can become by self-actualization. Then they talked about the ideal self, who you would like to be ideally reflects the society and the expectations and demands of what you should be, and congruence, relative degree of similarity between ideal and real self. So if there is no congruence, less congruence, it means really you are different, but you show that you are something else. So if there is more incongruence, there will be possibility of more psychopathology in you. So the congruency should be less. So the but it should not be same. It's impossible for the person. For scent, it may be possible. Then there is a trait theories of personality, which I'll just briefly discuss about this. This which describe the personality in context of different traits which refer to disposition or patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior. Traits are relatively stable and consistent over time and across situation, and types of traits on basis of pervasiveness in an individual's personality is cardinal. The most pervasive, central, less pervasive, and secondary, less generalized, cannot be directly observed. So these are the, and you all know that Cattell has given 16 personality factor questionnaire, and these factors he has talked about, but there are other theories which talk about only by five factors, that is called five factor theory or big five. It is like acronym is ocean. O for openness, C for conscientiousness, E for extraversion, A for agreeableness, and N for neuroticism. And biological traits theory Eysenck has given, and more emphasis on biological basis for our personality, and three dimensions of personality basically given: super traits like introversion, extroversion, emotional stability and neuroticism, and low constraint or high constraint. So psychoticism also talked about by Eysenck, but psychoticism doesn't mean psychotic symptoms. It's like tough mindedness or rigid thinking. So this model is given by the Eysenck. Behavioral approach system and behavioral inhibition system. So the Go system of the brain that seeks stimulus and is responsible for reward orientation, whereas BIS, the stop system of the brain that inhibits a behavior, and both of these involve different brain regions linked to emotion and rewards. So let us see the Indian perspective of self, which we have discussed earlier class also. So it basically talks about sattva, rajas, and tamas. So sattva means good nature, rajas means energetic, active emphasis, and tamas means negative aspects of our personality, anger, fear, laziness. And it talks about the five aspects of self as per Taittiriya Upanishad. You might have heard in our earlier class. So here they talked about Annamay Kosh, Pranamay Kosh, Manomay Kosh, and then Vijnanamay Kosh and Anandamay Kosh. So let us sum up. Individual, we have discussed about the individual differences, defined personality and aspects of personality, various theories of personality, and Indian perspective of self and personality. So thank you.